Andrew, that was a really compelling presentation. What was the inspiration?
The inspiration was really, I, I have a background in psychology. I studied psychology as an undergraduate, and I also got into celebrity gossip after I
Wow.
graduated. I've just always had this belief that social media and the internet in general represents the collective consciousness of a culture. And I just felt like there would be something really compelling going into the election.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was getting into data analysis, Python, and it just seemed like a really great project to, further develop my skills, explore something I was really interested in. And it turned out that it's turned into something even more than that.
Wow. So wait, so how did you do that? You mentioned Python. So what tools did you use? How did you get this data?
Yeah, well, thankfully, Twitter is very friendly about sharing their data, at least compared to some of the other social media companies, in my opinion. Their API is open, so it's a free open access API. I use Python to query the API on a daily basis, so I created scripts to query the data and then also did data analysis to compile it on a daily basis. And then I use Tableau from learning in your class to visualize it and learn how to tell that story.
Oh, that's really interesting. So every day you're collecting a new data set, essentially.
My computer was.
Wow, wow. So let's get down to understanding the data a little bit further. So you created your own metrics. Can you walk us through that a little bit more slowly, just so I think the students in this class can really understand how they can do that in their own practice?
Sure. Well, a lot of the metrics came from that domain expertise I had from working in celebrity gossip. I knew sort of what marketers look at in terms of social media campaigns. They want to know what the engagement is. From a psychological standpoint, if someone's actually interacting or expressing some behavior, that's a greater indication as opposed to them just seeing it. So I knew some of those metrics, also number of times they're publishing, number of mentions. So it was a combination of my domain expertise and also what was available through the API. So that's how I arrived at those 5 metrics.
I see, I see. And you mentioned this term normalization.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean?
Normalization, not to get too stats nerd about this, but it's a way that you can basically make sure everything's on the same plane, if you will. So you want your numbers to be comparable, and the way that I did that is I divided them by the max number. So that meant every metric that we were looking at was a score between 0 and 1. So for instance, if Donald Trump tweeted 100 times during a given day and Hillary tweeted 50 times and Bernie Sanders tweeted 25 times, we divide by 100. So Trump would be at 1, Hillary would be at 0.5, and Bernie Sanders would be at 0.25. So regardless of how many times, for instance, Donald Trump tweeted, for each day I would have a score between 0 and 1 moving forward.
I see. And then you use those 5 metrics that were normalized, and you added them all together for the composite score?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I added them together for the composite score, and that allowed me to compare between and amongst candidates across time.
I see. And that's why you use the line graph to compare across time.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Well, this was a really, really interesting project, and you left the audience and myself with some really compelling questions. How would you take this further from a visualization point of view?
From a visualization point of view, I definitely think the question about who engaged with Donald Trump is worthy of further exploration. You definitely do network graphs. The Twitter API allows you to see a location. There's been a lot in the news about Russian influence, so you could see if the folks who were engaging with Donald Trump, for instance, if they had a location that was based outside the United States, things like that. That would be really interesting to explore.
So is anybody else doing this work?
I've noticed that there are some folks at the NYU, I believe they're called the SMAP Lab. There's some folks that do social media and political participation. There are also some folks at the New York Times that have been writing about this. So I think there's more folks that are getting hip to the idea that social media can influence democratic processes, hopefully for the better, but right now we're sort of figuring it out, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for opening our eyes to this type of analysis. I think is really, really powerful. So can we broaden the conversation? I want to hear a little bit more about how you use visualization in your practice.
I mean, I love social media. I just love data in general. Obviously, visualization makes looking at a data set much easier. Our eyes can just process data at such a faster rate. You know, I showed the example of the raw data. That can get hard on the eyes if you look at that, especially if you have, say, a million rows. So if you can visualize something over time, for instance, and see the trends, you know, it's really easy. So I use data visualization as an exploratory tool. So if, you know, I get a data set, I can dive in, figure out the patterns, and then go deeper based on what I'm seeing. So I think it's a really good tool for seeing macro trends in a data set.
Do you find that this gives you a competitive advantage with your colleagues who are also, you know, data scientists in the field that may not have these skills?
Yeah, and definitely. And from the competitive advantage standpoint, I think data visualization is a great storytelling tool. And I think in the business world or, you know, in politics, whatever, storytelling is an essential skill. And if you can take the numbers, something that not everyone's super familiar with or confident with, and put it in something that's very easily understandable, it's going to give you a huge competitive edge.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, like not everyone's familiar with your data, right? You're the one kind of getting these Twitter reports on a daily basis, right? And so
Right.
you have that intimate kind of relationship and understanding of the data. So that's a really great point. So I'm curious, like, just like from your experience, like what do you see that people do wrong with data visualization?
They use Excel charts,
What's wrong with Excel charts?
a lot of chart junk, the shadows, 3D charts,
Right.
blue and white. As someone, you know, has taken your class and gotten into data science and data visualization, it becomes very obvious when someone's just thrown some data in Excel and clicked insert chart and they put that into PowerPoint. So I think the style and the formatting is the most egregious that I've seen recently.
Well, Andrew, thanks so much for sharing your practice with us. This was wonderful.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you.